Welcome to week 2 of the Small Business CEO Money Management course. Today we are going to be talking about sending invoices to clients or customers, whatever you decide to call your people. There are a lot of third-party applications out there that some of you may be using for invoicing, but even if you are, those invoices will need to be synced to QuickBooks so that you have a centralized place of recording all of your revenue and expenses. So if you are using a third party, please drop a question or comment in the Facebook groups so that we can make sure that you have that sync set up correctly so that your QuickBooks always reflect your accurate revenue. So the first thing we are going to do is click on the Create button, and we're going to go to Invoice under the Customer column. You're going to select your customer. In this case, we'll do Amy's Bird Sanctuary. I always recommend that you have an email as well as a complete billing address in QuickBooks. I think it is important to get into the habit of being as thorough and complete as possible. A lot of times when you are setting up your clients, you're going to get all this information anyway, so there's no reason not to have a phone number, an email address, or a billing address, because the goal is to grow your business, right? So if you are no longer the person who is actually maintaining your books, or you're actually not the one who's going to be interacting with clients all the time, and someone else needs to have access, you want to make sure that they have complete information on how to reach your customers. The next thing you see over here are the terms. They go from anywhere from due on receipt, which means it's due as soon as they receive the invoice, all the way up to 60 days. And if you have some sort of custom billing terms, you can create those as well. We're not going to do that here. However, please note that if I have due on receipt, the invoice date is going to be defaulted to today. If I change the receipt, the terms to say net 15, the due date automatically calculates. I will say that not every industry has terms for their clients, so that is really going to be based on whatever industry you're in. You may always send an invoice and expect your clients to pay you immediately. You may be in an industry where the average is 60 days. So you should keep that in mind and make sure that you're kind of following what is kind of standard practice, unless you have something, an agreement with your client. I'm going to close this little section here because we haven't talked about billable time. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. The next section you'll come to in invoicing is your products and services. So we're going to use a drop down, and in this case, we're just going to use the first one that we see, which is concrete. And because when we set up our products and services, for concrete, it automatically had a description, so that pre-populated into the invoice. Quantity, if you have your form set up to do quantity like this one does, you can put that in. So we're going to say 4. And let's say we're charging $250 per concrete installation. So this invoice is for $1,000. If you have a business in which you need to charge sales tax on your services or your products, then you have the option of making it taxable or non-taxable. You should know whether or not your services or products are taxable. If you're unsure, again, reach out to us directly and we will try to walk you through that process based on whatever type of business that you're in. In this case, this particular client, we're going to say they are taxable, and they're in California at an 8% tax rate. So you'll see the actual invoice amount is $4,000, but we're billing the client $1,080 to include taxes. Keep in mind that your revenue, the amount of revenue that's going to show on your profit and loss by this particular sale will be $1,000. The additional $80 in taxes is actually a liability. It's not your money. The state, in this case, the state of California is owed $80, and you need to make sure that you're not using that as working capital for your business, because you're just acting as an intermediary. You're acting as someone who's just holding those funds for your local Department of Revenue. So in this case, the client will get an invoice for $1,080, $1,000 of it is revenue, $80 goes to the tax department. The message here on the invoice, it's what we set up in our our customization back when we were customizing forms. I'm going to go over a couple of more things here. You could always add lines, which I just did. You can clear lines if you needed to do, which I just did. So I'm going to go back and put that here again. And then you can add a subtotal. So let's say, for example, I added a couple of things here. So now I have the concrete and I have custom design, and then I want to add a subtotal. So now we have 1075, and then I want to add something else like gardening, for example, and that's going to be $100. In this way, it kind of, if I, for whatever reason, I personally, I will tell you, I personally have never used this in billing my clients, but there will be instances where a business may need to show this kind of detail. So it is possible to do it in QuickBooks, and it is a really cool feature. Attachments. Everything in QuickBooks, all of your expenses, all of your income, you can actually add an attachment. So what we're going to do is go in here and add an attachment to this particular transaction. As you can see, it lets you know when it's actually ready. And once it actually turns blue and is hyperlinked, it is actually, it won't allow you to save or do anything until that is ready to go. If you want to send this attachment with the invoice to your client, all you will do is click on the attach to email. That's it. If this is more for internal purposes, if you don't want the client to see it, like maybe. So once we are ready to actually send it, we have our options of save and close, save and send, save and share link. Most likely you're going to do a save and send because that's the whole point. You want to send the invoice to your client. And hopefully you can see, let's make sure that we have it able to, yes, you should be able to see this. Okay, so you have the subject, which you again set up in your default, and you can always change it here if I needed to add something else. I have my basic body of my invoice letter, and then if I had payments turned on through QuickBooks, then that would be showing here, letting the client know that they can pay online. And then you would just hit send and close, and it would send the invoice to your client via email. In this case, we got a message saying that it was not sent because this is not a live account. But that, in a nutshell, is how you send invoices in QuickBooks. Now, if you want to see how that looks on the customer side, you would click on sales. You can go in a couple of places. You can click on all sales. And there's the invoice that we just created here for $12.55. If I wanted to go to a list of invoices, and this is by date, so I can there it is here. The most recent one, Amy's Bird Sanctuary. If I wanted to search by customers, and it's like, I know I sent an invoice, I don't remember when, and I know my client was Amy Bird. So in this case, she's first, but I'm going to go ahead and click just to show you. And then there's the invoice. It shows you her open balance. If I wanted to, I click on details. This is where I was saying you want to make sure that you have all of your information set up for your client. So that, in a nutshell, is how you would send it and enter and send an invoice in QuickBooks Online. If you have any questions about this, again, drop a question or comment in the Facebook group, and we'll see you back here for the next lesson.